Welcome to episode 7 of the Mighty Fuzz podcast. Today, Jeannie Vega is joining me. Jeannie, thank you for coming.
Thank you for the invite. Appreciate it.
Jeannie is the president of the New York de Jure, and today I would like to really nail down what the New York de Jure is and what their aim is. What exactly does the New York de Jure do?
So we are a collective of men and women living on the land that is New York, and what we do is outside the box. We don't depend on any type of representation, which are lawyers, attorneys, or politicians. We take matters into our own hands and put the people back at the table when it comes to decision making, and to make sure that these public servants do not step outside their box, which is that box is the Constitution, and to restore the Republic, since that's what we're supposed to be. And essentially just to make sure that our rights aren't being trampled on. So we get educated, we understand how to articulate those rights, and then we use methods that are no longer used or taught through their indoctrination camps to essentially put these public servants on notice, and then, of course, bring that into their courts, since all of the enforcement works for their courts. Everybody's works for the courts, so we want to make sure that that's enforced. So that's what we're working on right now, is to restore that hire and fire system that we're currently lacking.
So you say a Republican form of government. Does that mean you're a Republican for the Republican Party, for the GOP?
So there's nothing, it has absolutely nothing to do with politics. Politics is supposed to run through the people. We're supposed to control politics, and obviously politics has been utilized as a weapon against us to control us, politicize all these issues that are not politicized issues, our religion, our sexual orientation, whether we want to make medical decisions for ourselves or our offspring. Those issues should not be politicized. So it has nothing to do with politics. Republican form of government is that every politician who is elected by whoever they're elected by would ultimately, if whatever policy they create, they have to stay within their rules, which is the Constitution. And if they don't, then that policy, those laws are null and void, and that the people would be able to essentially unseat them for being in violation of their oath of office and stepping outside the scope of their authority. So that's what a republic is. A Republican form of government is where they have to stay in that box. So that's why they don't want us essentially utilizing that form of government, even though all of our founding documentation clearly states that we are a republic, and that every state in this union shall adhere to a Republican form of government.
So why do our politicians keep saying the word democracy? Both Republican and Democrats keep saying the word democracy. Why is that?
Because in a democracy, all you have to do is brainwash the masses and get the 51% of the population to agree with you using politicized issues and weaponizing one part, right? So you weaponize people, you weaponize the other side, you have two sides, and then you need the 51%. The 51% of the people vote, and then whatever political ideologies that the leading party has can be forced on the minority without any repercussions, regardless of whose rights you're violating, regardless of what part of the Constitution you're violating. So it's this illusion that the 51% gets to force their beliefs on the other 49% of the population with no repercussions. That's what a democracy is. It's mob rule. So when you're adhering to that, whether you're participating and you're on the losing side or whatever the case may be, you are participating in an illusion, and you are giving all of the control to the politicians. When you give the control to the politicians, they're just going to run amok, and that's what's happening right now. There's no repercussions because nobody is adhering to that constitutional republic that we're supposed to be. They're all acting in a democracy, and if you look it up, it's a simple Google search. Everything will say that we act as a democracy. We act as a democracy, and all that is coming from the states, because in the Constitution, it says that the states, essentially the senators, the legislature are the ones, the electors are the ones who vote for president, vote for people on a federal level. That's how the federal government essentially is established. So when we think that we're participating in that, the states themselves are making their own rules as to how this works. So it's the states that are creating the democracy. So when we go after the federal government for rigging elections and all that, it has nothing to do with that because their rules are stated in the Constitution. If you want to know how they're supposed to adhere, what they're supposed to adhere to, it clearly states in that Constitution. So it says it in the Constitution. That's why we're kind of losing the battle of, oh, they're rigging it, oh, they're doing this. It's the states themselves. Everything is on a state level. So that's why locally, if you want to understand how everything works, you have to get involved locally. The federal level is not something you want to get involved in because everything comes from the states. The Constitution is very clear, and that is those are their rules. We just have to learn them. We have to learn and know politicians' jobs better than they know their jobs. We call them public servants because that's exactly what they are. They are no different than your local police officer or your local fire department or your local sanitation worker. It's the same thing. We have to treat them the same way. Everybody has rules to stay in, and politicians are no different. We can't just give them a bye just because the majority of the people voted for their political ideologies.
When you say get involved locally, you know, I like to use that term a lot too. What exactly does Jeannie mean by getting involved locally?
So committees of safety is something that existed in the past during the Revolutionary War. Is actually the committees of safety that contributed to the Revolutionary War. They're the ones who appointed George Washington as essentially the general, and when they went to war, it was the committees of safety that decided that they no longer wanted to they deal with the British government, which was tyrannical, right? Telling them they needed to pay taxes, whatever the case may be. And it was the minority. The committees of safety were formed by the minority. The majority of people here, especially in the original 13 colonies, were perfectly okay with what was going on with Britain. So it was the minority that came together to create the committees of safety, to get involved locally, to make sure that their public servants weren't serving Britain. And if they were, then they would hold them accountable. However, they did that back then. Now, we're bringing forth that the committees of safety, getting involved on a local level, making sure that at the lowest level, meaning your county, right, your county execs, your board of education, very low level people who are elected to serve you, that they're doing their job. And if they're not doing their job, then the people would get educated and know how to unseat them and hold them accountable for stepping outside the scope of their authority or violating their oath of office. Because everyone who gets paid at some point by the government, by you, is a public servant, whether elected or appointed. It doesn't matter. That's the Department of Health. It doesn't matter who appoints that commissioner. They work for you, and you need to learn how to hold them accountable. So there's Department of Health, there's Department of Education. These people are at low levels in your county, and you need to understand how that works. You need to understand your Board of Elections. You need to go back to Civics 101, but understand it from a way that they're not teaching it in school. You need to do your own research. So it's important for you to understand who your public servants are on a local level and understand their job better than they know their job. Your county clerk, your clerk of the courts. These people are important. These people are all working against you right now, and they think they're doing their job. So it's important for you to know how to do their job so you can put them in their box, because that's what they're not in right now, because they don't even understand. They don't even understand what their box is. And we've spoken to public servants who don't understand that they have to adhere to an oath. They have no idea how these things work. So it's very important for us to get educated, to educate them, even if it's on a level, well, this is actually your job. And some people are they understand it. But, you know, they're like, oh, okay, got it. Other people you may get some backlash. You may have to put those people on notice. But that's our responsibility as bosses. And we are the bosses to those public servants. And we have to step up and do that job, mostly on a local level, to create real change.
So you're talking about checks and balances. So for the Republican, right, the Republican-minded, the Trump supporter, the GOP supporter, how do we get this information to them? Because I feel like they're the closest ones. They like the buzzwords, constitutional rights, freedom, we the people, but they don't even know what they mean. So how do we get them going from, all right, can't wait for 2024 to vote for Trump? How do we get them to realize that there's work to be done on a local level? What are some words that you can give those people?
Well, I will say, if you're mad that the system is rigged, it's working exactly the way it's supposed to, right? It's supposed to be rigged against us, because if you're working in an illusion such as a democracy and you're voting for your masters, because that's what you're doing right now, if there's no repercussions to their actions, and they can take lobbyist money, they could flip, and we're making excuses for them stepping outside the scope of their authority or doing something wrong, or we don't like that those people are in the minority and they claim they can't get anything done because of the system, because there's too many Democrats, whatever the case may be. Obviously, the system is working against us, no? Regardless if you're a Republican or Democrat, if you feel like your rights have been violated, then that means the system itself is working against us. So it's up to us to understand how the system is supposed to work and to reform that original system that was established by the founding fathers, so the people are in charge. Because in a republic, the people get the last say. The minority is protected by the Constitution, and we have to make sure that that's a thing, because right now it's not, with the illusion of democracy. So if we're participating in this illusion, we're going to keep on getting stuck. Our rights are going to keep getting violated, because that's how the system, the illusion, is constructed to make sure that our rights can be violated without us being able to hold anybody accountable for that. So regardless of who you put into these positions, there's still their checks and balances, and at the end of the day, they're going to get what they want regardless of who's there, because the system itself is rigged against us. So it's up to us to make sure that we go in there and tear that whole system apart that's just an illusion, pop the bubble, right? Bring truth to light, and bring forth what our forefathers originally created, which was a government for the people, by the people, that these public servants adhere to a constitution and stay in their box.
So we're talking about the corporation, right? This corporation is running, that was founded in 1871. Some say it started in the Civil War. That's where they started to create this democracy, where people believe they're in the republic, but they're actually playing in this system that was created.
Yeah, so it dates back to Abraham Lincoln with the illusion of freeing slaves. Right. That obviously people need to really do their research about what that was about. And then the 1871 Act, which some people may say was dissolved. Regardless if it was dissolved or not, this government that you see in power is a de facto government, meaning it is unlawful and it is temporary. It is up to us to create the committees of safety, then lawfully form our de jure assemblies on a state level, and then send our representation to the Continental Congress and recreate that Continental Congress to tell this Congress to step aside, because this Congress is a de facto Congress. The Congress is supposed to be representation from the states for the people, by the people. That's supposed to be what's going to happen, right? And a lot of states are actually working towards this. Maybe not exactly the way we work towards it. We're lawfully forming our counties, and we're forming our de jure state, because right at this moment we are not a de jure state. But we're working towards that so we can actually participate in the Continental Congress. And in the meantime, we're making sure that our public servants on a local level, all the way to state, are constitutionally compliant. Because if we don't know how to do that on a state level, there's no way we're going to be able to participate on a lawful level. On a federal level, lawfully. So it's important for us to be able to establish that on a local level, and to get our state in a constitutional, everyone constitutionally compliant, rather than just working towards a federal level. I think that the local level is. All the research that I've done, everything is on a local level. That's why it's important for everybody to understand how local politics works and how they work for you. So myself and my wife, working with the de jure, we're starting to see where we're hitting the wall, which is now the people of New York City are holding their elected officials accountable. Our elected officials don't even know what we're doing, the process we're doing, so they're ignorant there. So then it's going to the judge. And the judges are still playing in the corporation. How do we hold the judges accountable when you're working up this chain of command? So all judges are attorneys. They're just attorneys with black robes who think they're in some type of power. When you hire an attorney, an officer of the court, regardless if they seem like a better person than the rest of them, you are actually becoming a ward of the state. You are saying that I am not capable of presenting myself. I need to be represented. And you guys can do that research yourself as to when you hire an attorney, who can actually hire an attorney, so what you're agreeing to and volunteering to. So you are essentially stepping into that jurisdiction and you are giving that judge authority. They become your honor, when in reality they are nothing more than a mediator, paper pusher. So when you are able to present yourself in court, meaning I file as myself, as a woman, and I don't hire representation, I am not contracting with the court in a manner where they have authority over me. I am directing the court. I'm not asking the court for things. They are public servants. When a judge steps outside the scope of their authority, or they abuse their discretion somehow, or they violate their oath of office, you can hold them accountable the same way that you hold a politician accountable. And you can also do a bar grievance since they are attorney. So you have to learn how to do these things. Use every method to hold them accountable that you possibly can. Every rule, every oath, because that's another thing. They do take dual oaths, right? They take an oath to the bar since they're a bar attorney, which is nothing more than a club. There's no such thing as a law license. And then the other thing is that they take an oath to the Constitution. So we want to make sure that we're holding them to every single rule that they say that they will uphold. So we have to understand that. We have to go into the court rules. We have to go into the bar rules. It's a lot of research, but at the end of the day, if we don't do these things, they're going to continue to run amok because of our ignorance. So it's important for us to not be ignorant so we can hold them accountable.
Let's switch gears a little bit. We have Hochul pushing to detain New Yorkers if the state deems you sick. There's that woman, what's her name?
Bobby Ann Cox.
Bobby Ann Cox. Shout out to Bobby Ann Cox. How's that case going? And is there an underlying power that they're giving legislation with that court case?
So in 2015, Cuomo actually gave this power to the Department of Health. He backdoored this during the Ebola outbreak. And that exists. It's not an executive order. It's just documents backdoor to the Department of Health, which they did exactly what we're fighting now. So the court case doesn't save you. All the court case does is essentially say the legislature is like flexing their muscle. Only we can give the authority to round you up. They actually use the term bestowed, that word, which really, I mean, if there's anything that makes me angrier and it doesn't trigger me like all the political stuff and all that stuff doesn't trigger me, but it triggers me when politicians think they have authority over us that they do not have. The legislature doesn't have the authority. Governor Hochul isn't even claiming to have the authority, to be quite honest. She's trying to get the authority to do these things, which, again, it's not Hochul that wants to round you up. She's saying that the Department of Health should be able to round you up. I want everyone to go look in the founding documentation and find me a 3-letter agency. They're not there. Meaning they have zero authority. Zero authority. They're supposed to be committees, agencies that are created to help the government do their work. They also can't be their own judge, jury, and enforcement. They can't make the rules, enforce the rules. They are not enforcement. Department of Health, Department of Education, whatever 3-letter agency, they have zero authority over the people. Governor Hochul has zero authority over the people. And the legislature, who's claiming to have the authority to bestow power to another branch of government, that's unconstitutional. You cannot give legislative power to the executive branch. So every single one of them, including the 3 Republicans that claim to be everybody's savior, are in violation as they sit up there and boast about how they gave their legislative power to Cuomo and not Hochul. You never had the right to do that to begin with. So you're in violation. And we told you guys that you were in violation. That notice went out to every single member of the legislature, state legislature. So they know they're in violation. So to come into court and act like you were doing somebody a favor when you voted in the middle of the night and that was a bipartisan vote to give Cuomo unlimited power to do whatever he wanted. Don't think we don't know that. So all your party politics goes out of the window when we know you're all against the people, giving Cuomo all the power that he wants. An illusion, because none of you have the power, any authority over the people. Very important. Stop thinking that any court case or anything that they're doing it's all smoke and mirrors, because all they're arguing is who has the power to round you up. The answer is nobody.
That's right.
They can argue all day in court. They can have all the great arguments. You could do all the round of applause you want. At the end of the day, it's not a single person that's claiming to have authority that has authority. So stand up, stop being a slave, and stop saying, well, I'd adhere to these people. The legislature just gave power to Cuomo to do these things. They just didn't do it. But the legislature gave that power back in 2020, bipartisan vote. Go look at it yourself if you don't believe me.
So while they're cheering on Cox, ignorance, essentially, what really happening is they're going to hand it back over to the legislation, which will vote against the people, nor do they have the authority to make that vote, right?
If there's an emergency, so they're saying there's no state of emergency. So think about this, people. If there's a state of emergency and they bring back COVID, which we're saying that the government is doing it, right? I think critical thinkers understand that there's something wrong here, that they can't just say there's a virus coming in 15 minutes. And I don't know how we know that, right? It's definitely not us.
Right on time.
Yeah. And then release it and then say, state of emergency. Guess the legislature has to vote in the middle of the night to give the executive branch all the power to do whatever they want. And I'll tell you, back in 2020, I was still lobbying and I was trying to get two different pieces of legislation passed. I was actually trying to get a sister bill in the assembly. We had it introduced by Senator Monica Martinez, and one of them was the informed consent bill, which was a shot bill.
We'll edit it.
Was a shot bill, and it was essentially to have the doctors give the patients, when you lay your baby on that table, all informed consent for every single shot that they're going to give your child, right? And then the other one was to strengthen the medical exemption, right, at the time. So, because the medical exemption Department of Health went ahead and kind of made it impossible to get a medical exemption. So I'm there and I'm lobbying to essentially get those two bills introduced in the assembly. And I asked at the time Assemblyman Mike Miller, who has since been unseated by Jennifer Raj Kumar, and nice lady. And I say to Mike, at the end, what were you thinking voting yes to give Cuomo unlimited power? And he said to me, listen, they're going to do whatever they want, whoever's there. It's just about the red tape and the bureaucracy trying to bypass that. So at the end of the day, Cuomo was going to get what he wanted. We just we let him do it without essentially going through all the red tape and signing this and asking this person. Either way it was going to happen. It just was like this way it happens quicker. So that's it. All we did was vote for him to get his way quicker. Think about that for a second. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Checks and balances don't exist. He was going to get his way one way or another. And your legislature, bipartisan vote, went ahead in the middle of the night because they didn't want to hear your mouth, right? And gave him this power. And I will tell you, if you think, well, that's communism, sure. There's two socialists that sit on the Senate. One is Gustavo Rivera from the Bronx. The other one is Senator Julia Salazar from Brooklyn, Bushwick. They actually voted against the bill, and they're socialists. They believe in huge government.
Yeah.
Telling you, micromanaging your life. And they were like, this is out of hand. The two socialists. But yet, you have self-proclaimed conservatives on that sit on the state legislature that claim that they want small government, that handed over their legislative power, which, by the way, is a violation, to the executive branch. So this is what we're dealing with right now. And you want to give these people the power? Like, you're applauding these people having the power to bestow power to the executive branch or to the Department of Health, because every single ounce of illusion of authority that the Department of Health has comes from the legislature and court cases. It's the courts and the legislature. The Department of Health authority is listed nowhere. And literally, if you look at the appeal, if you look at James's appeal, the AG, she literally says that the Department of Health authority isn't written anywhere. It's created by the legislature. The legislature doesn't have the authority to give a three-letter agency authority over us. This is all nonsense, and we need to understand how this works. No one has the authority to round you up. No one. That's just not how it works.
We got to stop normalizing that. It's crazy, and we're
if we start
cheering
doing it a
on
little
cases.
bit, give them a little bit. They're gonna, take an inch. Give them an inch to take a mile, and that's exactly what they're gonna do.
I feel like we're already in the casket, and we have to get out the casket. Like we're dealing with a society that has been asleep so long that they've already been doing things like this, and it doesn't make it right. And I really fight with people that always say, "Well, it's been happening. What are you going to do? What are you going to change?" How do we get the masses to realize that to regain their power?
So I will say it is 100% ignorance. And they're working off tradition, which people hate tradition, right? I mean, they're working off the way they've been doing things for a long time. In fact, we filed a summary inquiry against Eric Adams and Alvin Bragg. And the only argument that the Corporation Counsel, there are hundreds of attorneys that are appointed to essentially defend the city, right? The only argument that they came up with was, we've been doing things like this for a long time. Every mayor has essentially, done an executive order and that was already existed. Just put it back into effect. That's the executive order one. That's what happens. He can't be penalized for doing what we've been doing. So saying it could be constitutionally, a violation of the Constitution. He could have stepped outside the scope of authority. But that's how we've been doing things for a long time. So why change it now? Literally, her argument, Corporation Counsel. So if we don't learn that that's wrong, that they just can't do whatever they want, we're going to remain slaves because you're volunteering to be a slave. And I think that's what everyone is doing now. When you're focusing more on voting for a master that has no repercussions to their actions, than learning what that public servant is actually supposed to be doing in their actual job, we're volunteering to stay and spiral, right? And that's exactly what we're doing right now. So I think that the message to the masses is, don't listen to me. Do your own research. Do your own research and understand that there is no interpretation. The Constitution is very clear. Articles of Confederation, very clear. Declaration of Independence, very clear. Read them. Even if it's boring. It was boring to me too. And then I realized how much it affects me not knowing what those things say, not understanding those things. When you read it again and again and again. And if you come on our calls, Scott's going to tell you. Once you read it once, read it again and read it again. Because you're going to have to read it several times in order to even start picking up on things, to be quite honest. We have to get educated. You have to stop passing the baton. You have to. No one's coming to save you. If they were coming to save you, you would have been saved already. You are your own savior. So it's up to you to put in the work to actually create real change. That's it. It's just that easy. No alpha male should be waiting for another man to carry them over the threshold and save them. So if you claim to be an alpha male, besides going out and hunting and going out and drinking raw milk or whatever we're doing right now, get educated.
Eating goat cheese.
Grow your own crops, raise chickens, and read the Declaration of Independence and understand that they work for you and you're a boss. Trump isn't your boss, you're Trump's boss. Learn how to direct Trump. Learn how to direct a Cuomo. Learn how to direct a Hochul. You hate them? Then learn how to direct them. Learn to hold politicians accountable and turn them back into the public servants that they're supposed to be. Period.
That's powerful advice. Powerful advice. Since you brought up the case, is there any updates that you can give? Maybe a brief update on the case. What's going on with it?
Yeah. So we did something a little bit different, which obviously was challenge their authority. So saying that they violated their duties. So that's something different than a tort claim. This is not a tort claim. So we didn't file a lawsuit. I think that's important to understand. This is to prove. So we did the notices and that the judge would oversee that Eric Adams and Alvin Bragg are in violation of their duties as a public servant, okay? So the judge did knock it down because she did claim that they had authority under the city charter. So they're saying that Eric Adams had the authority to create a mandate against you because of the city charter, chapter 1, section 8, which is just mayor powers. Nowhere within mayor powers does it say that he has power over you and I. He has powers over the city, over the employees of the city, the people who are employees of the government, of the corporation. He does not have authority over you. This is you have to understand how they've changed verbiage, and you have to read their definitions, right? People, when they use the word person, it means corporation, right? You have to read these things because it says it within their documentation. So you have to argue the right way. So we know that under the city charter that he doesn't have authority. So we have appealed that decision, and obviously I can't wait to go in and set precedent that every single thing that they've written in their documentation doesn't pertain to us, and we're going to prove it. This is something that attorneys don't do, right? They actually Black's Law Dictionary has, when you step into court, they've changed words. Attorneys have literally enslaved us with the changing of the definitions. Words that you use on an everyday basis mean something completely different when you step into court. That's another reason why it's so important to get educated. Black's Law Dictionary, 4th edition, look into it. But even within the Constitution, they use the word persons, they use the word citizens, and you're like, that's me. And then when you actually look at the definitions, it's not you, because you're not a corporation. You're not a dead entity. You're not any of the things that are under that definition. So we're going to go in and we're going to set precedent that we are none of the things that they claim that we are within the documentation, which means that they have no authority over us. And that's going to be big. So that's what we're looking. We have filed the appeal, and we're essentially waiting for the appellate courts to come back with their decision. Everybody they have their defense. Everybody is registered on NISA, so we're just kind of waiting for that. In the meantime, we're looking to do other things on more of a state level, and we're working on that stuff right now. We're writing documentation right now. 3-letter agencies need to get the smoke, so we're going to give it to them.
That's awesome. Since this court case started, you were telling me and my wife that there's been a black Suburban that's been visiting your home. One, do you think there's any connection with that? Why do you think this car has been, I don't know if did they ever show if they were cops or feds at all? Who are these people that are coming to your house?
It's a good question. So I wasn't home. It was 8 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday. My son had baseball. And so I was in another state, actually, for baseball. And my mom called me frantic that 2 men dressed in suits with mirrored glasses got out of a black Suburban with tint windows. And there was another man sitting in the back seat. She saw legs when they had the door open, but she couldn't see a face. And she said they rang the doorbell and they asked for me by name. They asked for my full name. And they asked my mom if she was Jeannie Vega. So they never said who they were. She asked if she could take a message, and they said, no, we'll come back. And they got back in the car. They waited a little while, I guess, to see if she was lying, and then they eventually left. So that was when we were waiting for the decision for the actual summary inquiry. I make sure that I'm not on any. I mean, it's easy to label us domestic terrorists, right? Anytime anybody speaks out against the government or does anything, unorthodox that may actually work, we're, quick to attack us. Here on the jure, we won't wear a domestic terrorism label with pride. We will definitely hold anybody accountable for making a claim that we are a domestic terrorist. So we would absolutely deal with that right away. So I have somebody run my information regularly to make sure that I'm not on a no-fly list, that I'm not labeled as a domestic terrorist. So I had to actually do that stuff to make sure that I'm not in any type of trouble or anybody's not, looking for me. We went to the police station, the local police station by my house, to make sure that they ran my stuff. There was nothing, so I was clear because I was a little alarmed by it. My mother was terrified. They shook her up, which triggered me. Then after I came down, I understood. Well, if they were here to get me, they would know who they're looking for, right? They wouldn't be asking my mother if she was her. So, kind of brought that down. But actually, right after we filed the appeal, and then it was like 2 Fridays later, Corporation Counsel got onto the appeal. So they signed on as representation for Eric Adams, and the same Suburban was parked outside my house. No one actually got out to ring a doorbell. It does have government plates. It has weird plates. The people on my block have said. So I don't know who they are, but I guess we could put 2 and 2 together and just. I don't have any other problems. I don't have feds following me. My mom did describe them as men in black. That's what she said. So I don't know who they are.
It's weird behavior because they're not saying that they're there to arrest you or to ask you questions. It almost seems, and I'm we don't know for a fact, but almost intimidation. Like, you getting that vibe?
Yeah. So it's either one of 3 things. It's either intimidation, telling me to that I better stop or else, right? Which there won't be there will never be a conversation. To be quite honest, for them to get that far, I'm not getting in any cars. I'm not speaking to anybody. Send me a letter, right? It's like a bill collector. The second thing is that pay me off, right? How much money to get you to go away? Because maybe maybe they think that the assembly doesn't work unless I'm there. Maybe that's what they think, right? There's plenty of people. Everybody carries their own weight. There's no leader here. Even if somebody feels like they're the face of something, or other people feel like I'm the face, this is a well-oiled machine, and we need everybody who's currently working to continue to work. I don't control anything. Everybody, we're all leaders here working towards change. So they're incorrect on that. Again, a conversation would never happen for anybody to buy me out or whatever the case may be. And then the third thing that people have said, which is a lot of people from kind of what we do, have said that maybe we're white hats. They're good people who are trying to contact me and see how they can help in a way. Again, I don't feel like I need to give anybody the time of day because what happens if they're not. So I don't know who they are. It could be copycats, right? I don't know. It's just the timing and what I'm involved in, and obviously how public I am, because there's people that work on this du jour that you will never see, because we're not an organization. They just put in their work and their time, and they're regular people. So you'll never see them. They work in the private, and I am more public to make sure that what we're doing gets out and that people understand that this is the way to create real change, is to get educated and actually do the work yourself, put in your own work. So that's why I thought it was important to be this public very early on, and I was elected to be president against my will. I did not want to be president. It scared me. It scared me to sign on to the summer inquiry when we were there, and I had to actually sign the documentation. It's scary. This is scary stuff because you're stepping outside your comfort zone, right? But I'm not as scared now. Like now, I'm like, we go to war with a 3-letter agency. Sign me up. Put my name all over that, because my rights have been violated. My son's kicked out of school, right? Which I should have an option whether I want to homeschool or not. No one has the right to dictate or claim authority over me, because I'm a free woman and I'm not a slave, and I no longer volunteer to be a slave, and I'm getting educated, and I'm working towards essentially obliterating that slave system that they've created, that all of us are volunteering to kind of participate in on a daily basis. My thing is, I'm going to make sure that there's a way that we can fight back, that my son has a way to fight back, that he has a leg to stand on when I'm no longer able to fight, that I'm handing something to him of substance, that it's not just, here, vote Republican, vote Libertarian, or, whatever the case may be, that I'm not giving him a way to continue to be a slave, that I'm giving him the proper education and the fight to really create change and free the next 7 generations. That's the goal. That has to be the goal, or else we're going to hand nothing to our kids. It's literally going to be full on enslavement.
And that's what bothers me about the whole thing, because we're in such new ground right now with going about holding them accountable, and how many New Yorkers that are complaining about the problem but are not getting involved. It's killing me. We're talking about something very serious here. We're talking about people going to your house. We're talking about intimidation, possibly intimidation tactics. And we need New Yorkers to step up at this point. We need men specifically to be stepping up. This is happening because, like Jeannie's saying, we have totally relinquished our power to our government. And because it's been happening, people feel like this is just the way things work. This is not how it works. I think Jeannie really nailed that down in this episode. Jeannie, I want to thank you for coming. You've been an inspiration in my life. You've been a mentor in this movement, my life, as well as my wife's. You've taught so many people. I feel very responsible in protecting you in this movement, because you are truly the information to help people go from voting to actually getting their power back from this government. I want to thank you for everything you've done for this movement.
I appreciate you as well, obviously, getting the word out and your boots on the ground, and we appreciate you as well. I think you don't get enough credit because you're constantly the interviewer, never the interviewee. Maybe we need to change that. So maybe we need somebody from the jure to do our own podcast so we can interview the men in this movement that actually step up and being open-minded to something other than just, going to rallies or whatever the case may be. And I'm not knocking anybody, but obviously more needs to get done. Obviously, change needs to happen from the inside. We can't stand on the outside screaming. We need to get on the inside and actually create change. And I think that's the most important thing, and we need men to do that too. It can't just be the woman. So props to all the men, all the alpha males that are thinking outside the box to create real change, to essentially free their offspring and to step up and no longer pass the baton to another man in hopes that the job will get done. If you want something done, you got to do it yourself.
That's it. If people want to find out more about the New York du jour, where would they find them?
Oh. I don't think we pressed that enough. That's nydejure.info, nydejure.info. That's our website. And you can go on there if you're interested in joining the du jour. There's a button there for that. You send an email and somebody will get back to you in a timely manner. You can also go to the different counties. If there's a lawfully formed county in your area, it would be listed in the county assemblies, and you can get involved locally. If that's more your thing, you want to get involved on a local level, that's what they're doing. And every single county is working on a local level without Suffolk County is working, Nassau County is working, Monroe County in Western New York. And we're trying, if you don't see your county there, then look to take the initiative to form that county and hold your local public servants accountable. Even if you think they're doing a good job, there's somebody on a local level that's not doing their job, and you can learn their job better than they know their job and put them back into constitutional compliance.
There you have it. Jeannie, thank you for coming today.
Thank you.
I appreciate you. Episode 7, we are out.